Hello crafty friends, this is Jen from Katahdin Crafts and welcome back to the Not Too Shabby YouTube channel today. Today is featuring Easter Wishes by the Not Too Shabby shop and my friend Teresa Russell, who is a design team member. She designed this stamp set, which is super duper cute. That bunny is just so adorable. Okay, getting right into the card, I have lots to show you today. The first thing I did was stamp everything out onto Copic friendly cardstock with Lawn Fawn's Jet Black ink, which is also Copic friendly. The little trucks I did from Jamie and Teresa's other set that they released this spring, and this one is Flower Truck. I stamped one in milled lavender and one in sponge sugar, and I wasn't sure at this point where I would fit those trucks in, but I just wanted to have them there just in case. And now I'm going to show you how I did this dual stamp or dual colored stamp. I'm going to show you how I inked this up, and you may have a different process that you use, but I'm just going to show you what I did today. And I'm using Mowed Lawn and Barn Door, both Distress Oxide inks, and I'm just going to tap it right on the bottom where the leaves of the flower are, the stems. And you see it does go up into the tulip part, the colored part, but we're going to fix that. I just took this, and you don't even have to do this step, but I wanted it to be as clean as I could get it. So I just wiped it down just a little bit, and now I'm just going to tap that barn door on the top there. And this is just another way of doing it. You could mask it if you wanted to, but I just thought that this would be easier. And then I'm just going to tap that mowed lawn on there just a little bit more. Now, if it goes up into that stem area, you know, on the very base of the tulip, I'm okay with that, because if you look at flowers, it kind of has that look anyway, where it's kind of holding that flower into the stem. So now I'm just going to press that down, and there you have a dual color. Now I did ink it up one more time, and just to make sure it had really nice deep coverage. Now I'm grabbing out dots for spring. This is also part of the March release. Jamie and Teresa collaborated with this as well. This is very thick, lovely paper, and it has the small dots on one side and larger dots on the other side. It comes with 2 pieces of each of these colors. I had already separated my pack at this point because I was getting ready to work with it. So what I did is I took an 1.5 inch strip off of every color except the greens. I took 2, and now I'm going to create my background with all of these different shades. For my card today, I chose to go with the larger dot side. You could easily flip that around and do the smaller, though it would work fine with this technique. And I'm using a card panel that is 8 5/8 by 3 5/8 because ultimately my card is going to be 9 by 4. Is my favorite slimline size. And now I'm cutting out my grassy areas with grassy hillside borders from Lawn Fawn. And I'm just showing you how I just laid these on the dots, and I'm going to use a low tack tape to position them and run them through my die cut machine. And I cut several different strips. At first I thought maybe I would only need 4, but I do go back and use several more, and I'm doing 3 different shades, the 2 shades of green and then the lightest yellow. So now I'm going to work on my background, and I'm not sure where I came up with this technique. I don't know if I've seen it before, but I am a scrapbooker also, and I've ripped lots of things before and inked up the edges, and I just saw all of these shades, and I thought how fun to put all of these together to make like a sunset look and a mosaic at the same time. So like a mosaic sunset is what I was picturing in my mind with all these lovely shades and all the dots. So that's what I went off to create or attempt to create. So when I was doing it at this point, I wasn't even sure if it was going to work, you know, but I wanted to experiment and try. So I ripped up all those different colors in just little pieces, and now I'm going to ink the edges. And I'm using Spice Marmalade for the orange. And I started off trying to use my tweezers to save my fingers a little bit, but ultimately I give up and my fingers just get like really super messy. But You know, that's the hazards of this job, I guess. And now I'm going to hit all of those grassy edges with a little mowed lawn, and this is just to make a lot of dimension. I inked up each shade with a different oxide ink. For that light pink, I did Spun Sugar. For the darker one, I did Kitsched Flamingo. For the purple, I did Dusty Concord. For the orange, I did do the Spice Marmalade. And for the lighter blue, I used Tumbled Glass. And for the darker blue, I used Chipped Sapphire. So, and I used the little finger daubers, as you can see, to ink up each one. And now I'm using a little mustard seed and hitting that sun with a little color. And that is an older die that I've had in my stash for a while. It is My Favorite Things Dynamics Radiant Sun. So now to work on my background. Now, like I said, I'm just kind of winging this and not sure if it was going to work out as I envisioned it at this point. The first thing I did was laid down some tape runner on my paper, on half of it. I wish now that I went just a little bit lower, but it all works out in the end. And now I'm just building this, no rhyme or reason. I'm just kind of thinking about how either in sunset or sunrise, how the sky kind of all blends with really pretty shades of color. And so that's how I decided to build my mosaic today. And then I wanted to frame it with that nice bluish color on the edges. So that's where I just intermixed the light blue and the dark blue together. I needed to come up with a plan to keep this all down and that they wouldn't flake off. So then I remembered that my friend Carrie Rhodes, who is also a design team member for Not Too Shabby, uses this Tombow Mono liquid glue, the Aqua, a lot, and says that it dries super clear. So remembering that tip from Carrie, I happen to have one of these in my drawer, so I just used that with a foam brush. And if a piece lifted up, I just tapped a little glue underneath it and then put it back on and brushed over it. And then I'm just making sure that all of the edges are laying flat. And then I just have to set this aside and let that dry because I was probably a little over generous with the glue. And now I did really super simple coloring for this card. Here are all the colors that I used on the eggs. And it's just your typical Easter egg colors. Now I colored up the carrots as well a little ahead of time, but I'm going to show you the color combination I used on those. And they are my typical carrot colors of YR14, YR16, and YR18. So I'm going to show you how I did one of these together. And I'm just going to lay down that shadow mapping like I do with the YR14, the lightest color, go in with the medium color with the YR16, and then add on a little sliver of the YR18. Then I'm going to come back with that YR14 and blend all of that out. And then just a little bit of those lines, I wanted to highlight those a little bit with the darker color, and so I put some YR18 down on that and then just colored that back out with the YR14. And now such a small area with the little stems, so I just hit that with a little YG61 and YG63. And now for the bunny. I wanted some soft pink colors on him, so I went with R02 for the inside of his ears and then his cheeks and his nose and that little paw that you can see the pads. So just did that. Like I said, very simple coloring in this card. I'm not worried about a lot of shading. And then just to get a little definition in him, I'm using my C1. And then I'm going to blend all that out with the lightest C color that I have in which is a warm gray, C00. But first I wanted just a little bit of a hint of pink on that belly. So I did color all that in with the C1, and then I went over that with the R quadruple 0. Again, I just went around and did some quick blending out of that C1 with my C00. And so nothing too tricky with this coloring. And now to assemble the second half of my background. I kind of played with the placement of how I wanted all those grassy borders to be, and then I just flipped them over so I would have the lineup correct, and that's where I'm doing the different shades. I'm doing the yellow in the background, and then the medium green or the lighter green next, and then the darker green. So I am kind of doing a little bit of a pattern there to make it look like it's getting lighter as it goes back. And again, I'm just thinking of depth perception a little bit. And then how the sunshine is hitting that back layer of the grasses. And now I'm not going to worry about the seam as I'm layering these, because I know I'll have plenty of different options of covering it up. And right now, so my biggest worry right here was the white showing through. I wanted to make sure that all of the card panel was covered with the grass. And then I also was trying to make sure that the grass blades weren't covering each other. I wanted to, again, be aware of that depth perception. And I knew I had a little bit of wiggle room because of having extra on the edges. And also take note of how I'm laying down my glue. I'm just putting it on the very bottom because I want to be able to lay things underneath each section of grass and perhaps on the edges too. So I just wanted to make sure that I didn't have that too fastened so I could still maneuver that. And at this point, the card is looking like a total hot mess. I looked down at that and I thought, uh-oh, but I'm going to keep going and trying. So now I just have to trim off each of those edges. So I just laid it into my guillotine trimmer and went around each section. This was a little bit trickier on the long end, but I just took my time and made sure that it was lined up. Now, I wanted something in the foreground that was going to cover up some of those seams and kind of just ground the card and put everything together. So I used my Trinity stamps, the Borders and the Builders set, a part of their Slimline series. And I used that little picket fence from there. So now I'm just going to lay out how I think my card should be. So this is just part of the planning process that I'm showing you, part of the designing and making sure that everything fits and making sure that I didn't need any more eggs to be colored. And then I'm kind of making sure that like I just switched around those eggs because I didn't want two of the dot ones to be beside each other. So I think that that is wicked sweet. And then I just needed to come up with where my sentiment was going to go. And my whole card came together actually when I saw the sentiment on the stamp set, Cottontail's Easter Farm. And this is, yeah, I just thought he's growing Easter eggs out in his farm and carrots, because why would Cottontail want anything else but pretty Easter eggs and carrots to be grown on his farm? So now I'm just gluing everything down with my precision tip Barely Art glue, which I absolutely love. And as you can see, I just used one of my stamping blocks as weight to help keep all of those elements in place. And I'm just going around making sure that I get each one of them. Now for the sentiment, I didn't want it to be stark white up in that really pretty sky, which my husband is calling the cotton candy sky. I don't know if it really truly looks like cotton candy, because to me I was trying to do the sunset or sunrise, but okay, cotton candy it is. And so I used some spun sugar and some milled lavender and put that on some white cardstock and then put my sentiment on there. And I made a mistake and went back in after and added a little bit of tumbled glass, and then I smeared my sentiment and then I had to do it again. But it's all good. And I learned from that mistake, right? So now I am just fussy cutting out my sentiment, and I'm going to pop up Mr. Cottontail so he is getting all the attention today for all his hard work in his little farm, in his garden. I'm also going to pop up my sentiment, Cottontail's Easter Farm. And then I had a couple of clouds that I had cut out, but I wasn't sure if I was going to use them or not. But I thought that they made the scene just come together perfectly. So these are Lawn Fawn Simple Puffy Clouds, and I used just the small one. And as you can see, I'm playing with that medium one on the side, but ultimately I didn't like the way it looked. And now for my card base, I cut a 9x8 section, and then I scored it at the 4-inch mark. And then this gives me the final size of a 9x4 card. And like I said, that is my favorite Slimline measurement. I like all the extra real estate it gives, plus the little frame that you can get. I like that frame for the pop of color. And I needed a little something more on that edge, so I went and colored another egg and then popped that up on that left-hand side. And for the middle, I cut another white panel, 8.5 by 3.5, just to put into there. And then I decided it needed a little surprise inside, and I already had those trucks done and fussy cut out, so I thought this is his delivery truck. This is Cottontail's delivery truck, and he's bringing a surprise to the recipient. So I added the truck inside, and then I needed to fill it. So I'm filling it with some of the extra eggs and carrots that I had, and I'm going to add a little, just a hint of sky with some tumbled glass. I didn't even re-ink the brush. I just used the ink that was on there. And I'm just going to apply that glue right behind there and then just layer my little elements inside the truck. And I thought that was just another cute little part of the card. And then I just wanted to, I didn't want the windows to look completely white, so I'm adding a little bit of C1 and C00 again to those windows. And there we go, a delivery to your recipient of the card. And then just to fill it, or to finish off the card, I added a few gems, just a couple dewdrops. And then that corner was giving me a little bit of a hard time, so I just added another dot of glue under there. And there we have it. Peter Cottontail's farm, or Easter farm, has come to life with a mosaic cotton candy sky. Thank you so much for crafting with me today on the Not Too Shabby channel. I really had fun making this card, and that technique of the mosaic sky was super cool, and I actually have a couple more ideas that are popping to mind about how to do some more cotton candy skies. If you haven't subscribed to the Not Too Shabby channel, please do so. And ring that bell for all the inspiration. Jamie has put together a fabulous design team that comes out with videos nearly every day, so you can get lots of inspiration. And remember that Not Too Shabby Shop is a one-stop shop pretty much. It has its own original content like you saw today, plus it has a lot of your favorite stamp companies there for you to purchase. So come check it out. And find me at Katahdin Crafts. Again, I am Jen, and thank you so much for spending time with me today. Take care and happy crafting.